Hi everybody and welcome back to class. Today is Monday, April the 11th, 2016. The good news is that the semester is quickly wrapping up and we are beginning to work on the final essay for this class. Once we get through the Rogerian argument, we will be done. Today we're going to jump into class session 13 and explore a little further about what the Rogerian argument is about. And as I hope you'll see, this one's a little more clear-cut than the Toulmin argument was. Doesn't mean it's necessarily an easier essay to write, but it is more understandable. So I'm going to go into class session 13, Understanding and Applying the Rogerian Argument, and let's see what we have there. If you take a look at the Readings and Videos folder, you'll notice that there are two entries. This one, What is the Rogerian Argument on YouTube? You really don't have to open this one, because if you open the Writing Commons folder, the video is listed there as well. And I'm not going to read through this because I know you will. I will simply point out that the same video right here is the same one that's listed in this folder. But as you will read, the Rogerian argument is about coming to a common ground, coming to an understanding of both sides of an issue or an argument. It's not that each side will agree that the other one is right, because that's not possible, but it is about finding areas in which both sides can acknowledge that the other side does raise some valid points. And I'll give you an example of that as we go a little further. Notice in the assignment folder, you're going to begin, or you did begin working on this in session 12 last week. In session 15, you will submit your final draft, but you are not turning in a first draft in this particular assignment. And in final session, we will reflect upon what we did for this essay. So let's go ahead and open that assignment folder. This will look pretty familiar to you, with the exception of turning in a first draft. I'm not going to open the PowerPoint. You can if you'd like. And I discussed the sample paper in the last video, so I won't repeat that as well. And I did mention some of what I'm going to cover on the paper instructions in the session 12 video, but let's hit a couple of highlights while we're here. You're using the same topic that you've been writing about for the semester, so we don't need to cover this. As it states, you're trying to reconcile two opposites, allowing each position to win the argument. That may not necessarily mean win outright, because one argument is probably going to be superior to the other, but the point of the essay is to point out that both sides have valid reasons for their position. When you write this paper, the focus should be from one perspective, and that is yours. And yeah, there's a typo there. That should be yours, not your, but I didn't write this. And you also want to demonstrate how you can come to a compromise on how each of the two sides can maintain their position. The audience of the paper are the stakeholders interested in this issue. May not be me, may not be the other folks in the class, but it is the people that have a direct interest in whatever your issue is. Here's the method that you're going to follow. Introduce the subject. Tell me what the controversy is and why it became a controversy. State the problem to be resolved by giving both views, likely yours and the other side that you've been combating in the first two essays. State the issue as a question. That's a great way. And then in the body of the essay, examine point by point where the two groups can find common ground, can agree with one another. They likely will not agree on everything, and they may not even agree on the solution, but there has to be some items and some points with which they can both agree. And I'll give you an example of that just coming up. In the conclusion, present a concise summary of the strongest points of both sides of the argument and include 5 sources, a minimum of 5 sources on your works cited page. You may not necessarily be able to reuse all the sources you've been using thus far. That's fine. You can probably recycle some of them, but for some of these, you're probably going to need to go out and find a new source or two. It's 1,200 to 1,500 words. Everyone's been pretty good about hitting the word count. And of course, it's in MLA format. We don't write in APA. I'm trying to go back a screen, and it's moving slow today. All right, before we get to an example, there is a discussion board, and there are 2 possible topics to write about. Zombies in a PDF document and a Prezi. I've looked at both of these. They are largely the same. They're 2 different views of the same thing. And the second one is a YouTube video. It's a little bit dated, but I think it still raises some valid points on, is college a ripoff? Now, I've looked through both of these on the zombies and on college is a ripoff. If I were writing this, I would probably do, is college a ripoff, as opposed to zombies. Personal preference, you can do either one, but between the two, is college a ripoff? And watching this 7 or 8 minute video, I thought there was a lot more to work with. But again, you can do either one. And this is a practice exercise in the Rogerian argument of trying to find both sides. Whether you think there is a situation under which zombies and people can coexist, or if you think that there is a situation where people can still pay for higher education, but maybe do so smarter, more effectively, with less cost, that's the point of it. Because this is just practice, you're not writing that many words about this particular issue. It's a chance to let you exercise using the Rogerian approach. The annotated bibliography will be due next week in session 14, but I need you to show me what are the sources you're going to use for the final essay. Now, there are several people in the class, I can't keep track of exactly how many, I think it's 3 or 4, that are writing about the importance of vaccinations. And each of them, and I'm sure you've read some of their drafts, have taken the position, the one that is supported by the scientific community, that vaccinations are safe and effective and necessary. Now, the opposite side of that argument are people who are anti-vaccine activists who believe that vaccines are dangerous. If you were writing on that topic, how would you come to some sort of consensus about vaccinations using the Rogerian argument? It's pretty unlikely that anyone can convince the anti-vaccine activists that vaccinations are completely safe and effective. And it's also very unlikely that the people who are excuse me, I'm having a hard time talking today, anti-vaccine activists, that all children should be vaccinated. So how do you come to a consensus and an agreement upon a subject like that? Well, I could think of a couple things, and this won't be exhaustive because I'm doing it off the top of my head. But I'm sure both sides could agree that children's health is very important. And I think both sides should be able to come to a consensus that the ingredients that go into vaccines should be thoroughly tested and should be known to the entire public. That's just 2 examples. I'm sure that the anti-vaccine activists and the pro-vaccine activists are also both very concerned about the rise in autism in children in the past couple of decades, and that it is an alarming event, and that further testing needs to be done to find out why this is happening more and more. That's just 3 quick examples, but you can see how they may never come to terms that vaccinating is good all the time or is bad all the time. but on those three issues, they could probably begin to agree, and each side could see the perspective of the opposite side. So that's my quick little synopsis of how to begin to construct a Rogerian essay like this one. If you have questions about how you go about this, I welcome your comments and I welcome your questions. And again, the best way to reach me is by text at 812-498-4200. You can send me an email anytime at mstenger and the number 1 at ivytech.edu. I'm going to take one more poke around in this folder and see if we have covered everything. There are the readings and the videos. Again, you can look at both of them just by clicking on the Word Commons article. The assignment folder, we have covered this before, but there it is again. The discussion board, you have two possible topics. You can look at zombies, you can look at the cost of college. Either one is fine. You need to write your own original post and respond to 2 other students. If you pick zombies as your issue, of course you can respond to people who have posted about is college a ripoff. Go back and forth. It might even be more interesting if you did something like that. And continue to work on your annotated bibliography. It will be due in session 14. And as I mentioned, for this particular essay, you will not be turning in a draft. You'll be working on your paper as we go and working on your annotated bibliography, but you will only be turning in a final version this time. That's it for this week. Good luck to everybody as we continue to wrap up the course. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I'll talk to you anytime. I'll see you around. Thanks.